Have you ever been told that you are not enough? That you are too small, too weak, too few, too unqualified for the challenge in front of you? Have you ever looked at the giants in your own life, the overwhelming odds, the impossible tasks, the crushing opposition, and felt the cold grip of inadequacy? We live in a world that worships strength, that celebrates numbers, that trusts in power. And in that world, it is so easy to believe the lie that our weakness is our disqualification. But what if I told you that your greatest weakness, the very thing you think disqualifies you, is actually the perfect stage for a divine victory? What if the secret to overcoming the giants in your life is not to get bigger, but to get smaller? Today, we journey into one of the most counterintuitive, logic-defying, and faith-igniting stories in the entire Bible. It's the story of a man crippled by fear and an army that became more powerful the more it was downsized. This is the story of Gideon's unlikely army, a timeless and profound lesson in how God intentionally chooses the weak, the few, and the forgotten to utterly shame the strong. This is a story that proves your inadequacy is not an obstacle to God. It is His chosen battleground. Our story begins in a time of deep darkness for the people of Israel. For 7 years, they have been crushed under the brutal oppression of the Midianites. The enemy was a locust swarm, so numerous they were like sand on the seashore. They would sweep in at harvest time, devouring everything, leaving the Israelites with nothing but poverty and fear. The people of God were broken, hiding in caves and dens, their spirits shattered. And it is here, in the heart of this despair, that God chooses His champion. But He doesn't go to a palace. He doesn't choose a decorated general. He finds a man named Gideon hiding. He's in a wine press, secretly threshing wheat, trying to save a little grain from the enemy. He is the very picture of fear. And when the angel of the Lord appears to him and calls him a mighty warrior, Gideon's reply is soaked in doubt and insecurity. He says, "Pardon me, my Lord, but my clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my entire family." He saw himself as the weakest of the weak, the smallest of the small. And God said, "Perfect. You're the one I want." After a series of miraculous signs to bolster his fragile faith, Gideon sounds a call to arms, and a surprising number of men respond. 32,000 men from the tribes of Israel gather, ready to fight for their freedom. From a human perspective, this is a good start. The odds are still overwhelming, but 32,000 is a respectable army. It's a number you can put your trust in. It makes logical sense. And that is precisely why God said, "It's too many." God tells Gideon, "You have too many men. I cannot deliver Midian into their hands, or Israel would boast against me, saying, 'My own strength has saved me.'" This is the first shocking principle of God's strategy. He will not share His glory with human pride. He is about to perform a miracle, and He wants to make sure that when the victory comes, no one can possibly mistake who is responsible. So, He gives the first command for downsizing. Announce to the army, "Anyone who trembles with fear may turn back and leave." Imagine the silence that fell over the camp. And then, imagine the sight as 22,000 men, more than 2/3 of the entire army, turn around and walk away. The army of 32,000 shrinks to just 10,000. The odds, already impossible, just got worse. But God looks at the remaining 10,000 and says, "There are still too many." He gives Gideon a second, even stranger instruction. "Take the men down to the water, and I will thin them out for you there." At the water's edge, God sets the test. He watches how the men drink. 9,700 of them get down on their knees, putting their faces to the water to drink. But 300 of them remain alert. They cup the water in their hands and lap it like a dog, their eyes still scanning the horizon. And God says, "With the 300 men that lapped, I will save you and give the Midianites into your hands. Let all the others go home." 300 men. An army of 32,000 has been reduced to a tiny band of 300. They were facing an enemy with over 135,000 soldiers, with camels and tents that stretched across the valley floor like a plague. The odds were now 450 to 1. This was not a battle strategy from a human perspective, This was a suicide mission. What army of resources, talents, or plans are you holding on to that God might be asking you to downsize so that you can make room to rely on His power alone? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. God had stripped Gideon of everything he could possibly trust in. He took away his numbers. He took away his strength. He took away his military logic. And when Gideon had nothing left to rely on but a naked promise from God, that's when he was finally ready for victory. And what were the weapons for this impossible mission? Not swords and spears. God gave them trumpets, empty clay jars, and torches to hide inside the jars. These were not weapons of war. They were instruments of faith, tools designed for psychological shock, not physical combat. That night, Gideon divided his 300 men into 3 companies, and they surrounded the vast Midianite camp. In the dead of night, on Gideon's signal, a sound shattered the silence. 300 jars were smashed simultaneously. 300 trumpets blared with a terrifying blast. 300 torches blazed to life in the darkness, and 300 voices roared a single, unified war cry, a sword for the Lord and for Gideon. The enemy camp erupted in absolute panic. Woken from a deep sleep by this terrifying surround sound assault, they saw lights and heard trumpets everywhere. They believed they were surrounded by a massive, conquering army. In the chaos and the darkness, they turned on each other. The Midianite army defeated itself. God won the victory not with a mighty army, but with an obedient few, turning the enemy's strength into their own undoing. This story is a powerful, eternal principle etched into the heart of the Scriptures. God does not look for our ability. He looks for our availability. He does not need our strength. He requires our surrender. He often leads us to a place where our own resources have been completely exhausted, where our own plans have failed, where our numbers are laughably small, so that we can finally get out of the way and watch Him work. Maybe today you feel like Gideon in the winepress, hiding, afraid, convinced that you are the least and the weakest. Maybe you are looking at the 300 men of your own life, your limited resources, your small influence, your fragile faith, and comparing them to the locust swarm of your problems. Hear this. That is exactly the place where God does His greatest work. Your weakness is not a liability. It is an invitation for His power to be made perfect. Stop seeing your smallness as a disqualification and start seeing it as your ultimate qualification for a miracle. The battle you are facing is not yours to win. It is His. And He has already chosen the unlikely, the few, and the weak, so that the world will see His glory and know that the victory belongs to the Lord alone. If this story of the power that is found in weakness has spoken to you, please give this video a like and subscribe to our channel. Join us as we continue to uncover the profound ways God turns the world's logic completely upside down.